6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello, this is 6 Minute English from BBC Learning English. I'm Georgina.
And I'm Neil.
Neil, this may sound a bit personal, but have you ever taken your clothes off?
Well, yes, every day when I have a shower.
Of course. I mean in public. Have you ever been naked in public?
No, stripping off or getting naked publicly is not my idea of fun. Who would enjoy doing that?
Well, naturists would. That's what we call people who think not wearing clothes outdoors is a healthy way to live, and it makes them feel good. We might also call them nudists because they are nude.
Right, so naturists feel being naked is natural. It's not about them being interested in nature.
Not necessarily, but we are going to discuss why being naked in nature might be good for us. But how about a question first, Neil? The act of swimming naked is informally called skinny dipping. The world's largest skinny dip took place in Ireland in 2018. But do you know how many naked swimmers went into the sea? Was it approximately A. 250 people, B. 2,500 people, or C. 25,000 people?
I'd have to guess and say that only 250 people would be brave enough to run into the cold sea naked.
Well, as always, I'll reveal the answer later. So the idea of getting naked might fill you with dread. It might seem embarrassing, but some people do sunbathe naked on the beach or in their garden, or they go to naturist holiday parks.
But naked rambling, walking naked in the countryside, might be taking it one step further. However, it's something Donna Price, a volunteer at British Naturism, is keen to advocate or publicly support. Here she is speaking on BBC Radio 4's Woman's Hour programme, explaining why.
We enjoy the feeling of being actually at one with nature. If you haven't actually tried being naked in nature and naked outdoors, when you can feel the skin, the warmth air all over your skin, it's such a lovely feeling. There is a great feeling of liberation and freedom once you actually try naturism. And I would never advocate for someone to actually go out for a naked walk as the first thing they ever did. I just would not do that. You've got to be comfortable in your own skin, so you do it at home, in your own garden maybe if you can. Get comfortable with yourself. Actually start to feel that being naked feels normal, which, to me, it does.
So for Donna, naked rambling means she has a connection with nature. She feels part of it and it makes her feel good. That's the feeling of being at one with nature. But couldn't you do that with your clothes on?
Well, she also mentions there's a feeling of freedom and liberation. That's being freed from something. Here, it's freed from your clothes.
Donna also told the Woman's Hour programme that going for a naked walk shouldn't be the first thing you attempt to do. You need to feel relaxed and confident with your actions first, or what we sometimes say is comfortable in your own skin.
Yes, she says we need to get to feel that nakedness is normal. I suppose we were all born naked, and it's not something to be ashamed of. And, in the UK at least, it's generally not against the law to be naked in public.
I'm still not convinced, but according to Donna Price, this freedom of expression is quite well received when she's out walking. Here she is speaking on the BBC's Woman's Hour programme again.
Majority of the responses that you actually encounter, if you do encounter the general public, are actually very encouraging. They're not shock horror majority of the time, I can guarantee that. A lot of people say just good morning and carry on. Some of them actually say, gosh, you're braver than I am, if it's a bit chilly. A lot of them are just say, I really wish I could do that. And usually we just say, you can.
So the people Donna encounters or meets seem to support what she's doing. She says it's not shock horror. This is usually said as an informal way of actually saying something is not surprising, not shocking.
Well, shock horror, Neil, I won't be taking my clothes off anytime soon. It's too cold anyway, and I don't want to be bitten by all those bugs you get in the countryside. But it's good to hear that people are open-minded to the idea.
Yes, good luck to anyone who wants to give it a try, and well done to those brave people who took part in the world's biggest skinny dip, a mass naked swim. Earlier, Georgina, you asked me how many people took part in the event in Ireland in 2018.
I did, and you said?
I said about 250 people went for a dip. Was I right?
No, Neil. According to Guinness World Records, 2,505 women took part in the largest charity skinny dip in Wicklow in Ireland.
Well done to them. And skinny dipping was one of the items of vocabulary we discussed today. This is an informal way of describing the act of swimming naked.
We've also been discussing naturists, people who think not wearing clothes outdoors is a healthy way to live, and it makes them feel good. The act of doing this is called naturism.
And when you advocate something, like naturism for example, you publicly support it.
Being at one with nature means having a connection with the natural world that makes you feel good. And liberation means being freed from something.
And when we say shock, horror, we actually mean the opposite. It means something is not shocking or surprising. We're being sarcastic, I guess.
It's not like you to be sarcastic, Neil, but shock, horror, we're out of time now. We only get 6 minutes and that's the naked truth. Thanks for listening and goodbye.
Goodbye.
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello, this is 6 Minute English from BBC Learning English. I'm Neil.
And I'm Sam. When Neil and I record 6 Minute English face-to-face in the BBC Learning English studio, which I'm happy to say we are doing right now, we look at each other as we speak. We smile and use hand gestures and facial expressions in a type of communication called body language.
But during the COVID pandemic, everyday meetings with work colleagues, teachers and friends and 6 Minute English recordings all moved online.
Video meetings using software like Zoom and Skype became the normal way to communicate with family and friends. And whatever happens with COVID in the future, it seems they're here to stay.
In this programme, we'll be asking, how has body language changed in the world of online video meetings?
We'll meet the person who wrote the rule book for clear communication in the digital age, Erica Darwin, author of a new book, Digital Body Language.
But before that, I have a question for you, Sam, and it's about Erica Darwin. She may be a communications expert now, but growing up in Pennsylvania, she was a shy and quiet schoolgirl. So how did Erica beat her shyness and become the confident communicator she is today? Did she A, attend public speaking classes, B, copy the body language of the cool kids at school, or C, raise her hand to answer the teacher's questions, even if she didn't know the answer?
I'll guess C. She raised her hand to answer the teacher's questions.
OK, Sam, we'll reveal the correct answer later in the programme.
In face-to-face meetings, we immediately see someone's reaction to what we said through eye contact, where two people look into each other's eyes as they talk.
Unfortunately, using a web camera to make eye contact is almost impossible in online meetings, and this often creates a kind of distancing effect.
Erica Darwin makes several suggestions to help with this. See if you can hear the final suggestion she makes to Michael Rosen as part of BBC Radio 4 Word of Mouth.
And last but not least, slow down. Remember when it was completely normal to have a 1-minute pause in a room with one another because we knew we were thinking and brainstorming. If we don't hear someone speak on video, we ask them if they're on mute. Practice what I call the 5-second rule. Wait 5 seconds before speaking to make sure individuals have time to process the ideas, especially if there may be technology or accessibility issues.
Did you hear Erica's last piece of advice, Neil?
Yes, she recommends slowing down, something we do naturally face-to-face when we're thinking or brainstorming. That's discussing suggestions with a group of people to come up with new ideas or to solve problems.
Slowing down gives us time to process new information, to understand it by thinking carefully and reflecting on it.
Erica compares online body language to learning a new language. It takes practice, especially when it comes to smiling and laughing, something Michael Rosen finds hard to do in video meetings.
Listen to him discussing this problem with Erica Darwin for BBC Radio 4's Word of Mouth.
Do you think it's killing off people laughing and smiling in the way we do when we're all together in the live situation?
I would say that it is much less likely that we laugh and smile on camera for a few reasons. Number one, laughing is often done in unison, where we can quickly pick up the energy of someone smiling or laughing and feed off of that and laugh ourselves. When it comes to screen delays, the fact that it's not natural to see our own camera and being distracted by that, we are much less likely to laugh and smile. One of the ways we can overcome this is by creating intentional moments in our meetings for the water cooler effect.
Erica points out that laughing often happens in unison, together and at the same time.
Yes, if someone starts laughing, it makes me laugh too.
She also thinks it's important to make time for employees to chat informally about things unrelated to work, their weekend plans or last night's TV show.
And she uses the expression, the water cooler effect, which comes from the United States, where office workers sometimes meet at the water fountain to chat.
So the water cooler effect refers to informal conversations that people have in their office or workplace, maybe in the lift, the office kitchen, or if there is one, by an actual water cooler.
Erica Dhawan seems very comfortable communicating online, but she's had lots of time to practice since her school days.
Ah, yes, Neil. In your quiz question, you asked how Erica conquered her shyness at school. I guess that she raised her hand to answer the teacher's questions.
It was a good guess, Sam, but the correct answer is B. She copied the body language of her cool teenage classmates, so probably lots of rolled eyes and slouching.
Okay, let's recap the vocabulary from this program about online body language, non-verbal ways of communicating using the body.
Eye contact is when two people look at each other's eyes at the same time.
Brainstorming involves a group discussion to generate new ideas or solutions.
When we process information, we think about it carefully in order to understand it.
In unison means happening together and at the same time.
And finally, the water cooler effect is an American expression to describe informal conversations between people at work.
Neil is looking at his watch, which is body language that tells me our 6 minutes are up.
Goodbye for now.
Goodbye.
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello, this is 6 Minute English from BBC Learning English. I'm Sam.
And I'm Neil.
Sleep. We all need it, some more than others. I can usually get by with around 7 hours a night, but I do like to have a nap, a short sleep in the afternoon when I'm not working, of course. How about you, Neil?
I'm always tired, and as soon as my head hits the pillow, I'm out like a light, meaning I go to sleep very quickly.
Well, Neil, you might not survive in South Korea then. Apparently, it's one of the most stressed and tired nations on Earth. A place where people work and study longer hours and get less sleep than anywhere else. We'll find out more later and teach some sleep-related vocabulary.
But before we do, you need to give me a question to keep me awake and alert.
Of course I do. And here it is. In the 1960s, American man Randy Gardner set the world record for staying awake for the longest period. Do you know what that time was? Was it A, 64 hours, B, 164 hours, or C, 264 hours?
All sound impossible, but I'll guess A, 64 hours. That's nearly 3 days.
Oof, well, I'll give you the answer later in the programme, assuming you don't doze off. But let's talk more about sleep now. As I mentioned, we all need it to help our mind and body rest and relax. And going without sleep, or sleeplessness, is bad for our health.
Many things can stop us sleeping, and some of them are pressure, anxiety, and stress caused by your job. And in South Korea, research has shown it's increasingly difficult to switch off. Stop thinking about work and relax. South Koreans sleep fewer hours and have higher rates of depression and suicide than almost anywhere else.
Siwon Koo has been reporting on this for the BBC World Service documentary podcast. He met one worker who explained why she never got time to relax.
Separating work and rest time has been a recurring issue for Jieun. In her last job, her office hours were long. Like most Korean firms, her employer didn't think about any boundaries. They encroached on almost all her time.
They told me, you need to be contactable 24/7. There will always be someone from work reaching out to me like, you need to get this done right now. Even just thinking about it, like I get really agitated.
So that stressed out worker got agitated just thinking about the situation. She got worried or upset. That's because office hours in South Korea are long and some employers expect their workers to be contactable all the time.
Yes, there are no boundaries, so no limits or rules about when employers can contact their employees. Therefore, as this employee said, work encroached. It gradually took over her leisure time. Stress like this can lead to insomnia, a condition where you are unable to sleep.
The BBC Discovery podcast goes on to explain that offering a cure for this sleeplessness has become big business. There are sleep clinics where doctors assess people overnight and sleep cafes that offer places to nap in the middle of the working day.
One other issue in South Korea that's affecting sleep is the bali culture, meaning quickly, quickly, or hurry, hurry. People are constantly in a rush.
Dr. Lee spoke to the World Service's Discovery podcast about the effects of this and how even trying to take medication to help sleep has its problems.
People take like 10 or 20 pills per one night, and because they cannot fall asleep even with the medication, they drink alcohol on top of that, and they experience side effects of the medication. People can sleepwalk and go to the refrigerator, eat a lot of things unconsciously, uncooked food, and they don't remember next day. Yeah, there were cases of car accidents in the center of Seoul, which has been a sleepwalking patient.
So some people are taking lots of pills to help them sleep, but they're not working, so they're drinking alcohol as well. This leads to side effects, unpleasant and unexpected results from the medication.
It seems one of these side effects is sleepwalking, moving around and doing things while still asleep.
Well, if sleeping pills aren't working, there's always meditation, or working less.
At least South Koreans are getting some sleep, unlike Randy Gardner, who I asked you about earlier.
Yes, he holds the record for staying awake the longest, and I thought he stayed awake for 64 hours. Was I right?
Oof, no, Neil, not long enough. Randy Gardner stayed awake for an incredible 264.4 hours. That's 11 days and 25 minutes in January 1964.
That's one record I really don't want to beat.
Well, before you nod off, Neil, let's recap some of the vocabulary we've been discussing, including go out like a light, which means you go to sleep very quickly.
When you switch off, you stop concentrating on one thing and start thinking about something else.
A lack of sleep or rest can make you agitated. You get worried or upset.
Encroach means gradually take over.
When you take medication and it gives you unpleasant and unexpected results, we call these side effects.
And sleepwalking describes moving around and doing things while still asleep.
That's our 6 minutes up. Goodbye and sweet dreams.
Goodbye.
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello and welcome to 6 Minute English. I'm Neil, and joining me, it's Rob.
Hello.
Now, Rob, would you say you're someone who's quite organised?
Oh, I'd like to think so.
What's the best way to organise everything?
You need a to-do list, a list of all the jobs you need to do that you can work your way through.
That's a good idea and something we can include in today's discussion about life admin. Admin is short for administration. That describes the activities and tasks you have to do to make a business or organisation run smoothly. But life admin is administration you have to do to make your day-to-day life run smoothly, like doing housework or paying a bill. And the first thing on my to-do list is to ask you and the listeners a question.
Yes, you wouldn't want to forget that.
So, the website Hotels.com commissioned some research about how much time young adults, that's millennials, spend doing life admin. Do you know what proportion of their free time they spend doing life admin tasks? Is it A, a quarter of a day, B, a third of a day, C, half a day?
Based on my personal experience, I would say about a quarter of a day.
Well, we'll see if you're the same as other people at the end of the programme. But as we all know, life admin is necessary, but it can be a bit of a chore, a boring, ordinary task you do regularly.
Experts have studied the subject and looked at how we do it and how we can make it less boring. One of them is Elizabeth Emmons, Professor of Law at Columbia University and author of The Art of Life Admin.
She's been speaking to the BBC Radio 4 programme Woman's Hour and described what she thought life admin is.
Life admin is the office work of life. It's the invisible layer of work that is the kind of thing that managers and secretaries, aka admins, do for pay in the office, but that everyone does in their own lives for free.
She calls life admin the invisible layer of work. So it's work, tasks or chores we carry out that people don't notice we're doing or don't realise we have to do them. It's extra work in our life.
And we don't get paid for it unless we're at work, when it is the role of someone to do it, such as secretaries or AKA admins. AKA is short for also known as. So secretaries might also be known as admins. That is short for people who do administration.
Right, so we know life admin is boring and we don't get paid for it. And also, trying to renew your house insurance or trying to query a bill with a utility company can be frustrating and feels like a waste of time. A utility company, by the way, is one that supplies something such as electricity, gas or water to the public.
My problem is I never get round to doing my life admin. There are better things to do, so you could say I procrastinate. I delay doing things until later, probably because I don't want to do them.
You are what Elizabeth classifies as an admin avoider. So this is where my to-do list comes in handy, Neil. You have a written record of tasks that can be quite satisfying to cross off as you do them. This is something Elizabeth Emmon has found to work, at least for some people. Let's hear from her again. What type of people did she find get most satisfaction from completing a to-do list?
If you've ever made a list and put things on it that you've already done just to cross them out, then you know the kind of done it pleasure that goes with that. But actually, I interviewed people, especially the super doers that I interviewed, actually can find real pleasure in the actual doing of it. And so trying to understand how we can get to that when we have to do it, how we can make it so that there is some meaning in it and some texture and the ways of doing it that please us.
So she was describing the super doers. These are the people who love admin and would spend an evening putting their book collection into alphabetical order.
Elizabeth mentioned that we should learn from the super doers and get some done it pleasure in doing our life admin. We need to find a meaning for doing it. In other words, what it represents, so we can see the benefit of completing our to-do list.
How we find pleasure from doing life admin is different for different people. So personally, I think I'll stick with being an admin avoider. But that might explain why I just got charged extra for not paying my credit card bill on time.
Well, please don't avoid giving us the answer to the quiz question you asked us earlier.
Yes. Earlier I asked researchers, commissioned by Hotels.com, polled 2,000 young professionals about their lives. How much of their free time do they spend doing life admin? Is it A, a quarter of a day, B, a third of a day, C, half a day?
And I said a quarter of a day.
Yes, they spend a quarter of their days carrying out tasks like doctor's appointments, waiting in for packages to be delivered, and doing household chores. Oh, boring.
Unlike this programme, Neil, which is not a chore. One of the words we discussed today.
Yes, our vocabulary today included chore, a boring, ordinary task you do regularly.
We also mentioned admin, short for administration, the activities and tasks you have to do to make a business, organisation, or just your life run smoothly.
We heard AKA, meaning also known as. For example, Rob, AKA the master of 6-minute English.
Oh, thanks very much, Neil. Next, we heard utility company. That's a company that supplies something such as electricity, gas or water to the public. And we also heard how Neil likes to procrastinate. That's delay doing things until later, probably because he doesn't want to do them.
Finally, we mentioned superdoers, an informal term to describe people who get satisfaction out of doing life admin and do lots of it.
Like me.
Well, it's time to go now, but there's plenty more to discover on our website at bbclearningenglish.com. Goodbye for now.
Bye-bye.
6-minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello, this is 6-minute English from BBC Learning English. I'm Neil.
And I'm Rob.
Do you enjoy your own company, Rob? Do you like being alone, or do you prefer spending time with friends?
Well, recently I haven't seen my friends much because of coronavirus. In fact, I've hardly seen anyone this past year.
It sounds like Rob has become a bit of a hermit, someone who lives alone and apart from society.
Yes, I've been forced to spend time alone, but it wouldn't be my choice. I'd much rather be socialising and visiting friends.
If, like Rob, the idea of being alone does not appeal to you, it might be hard to understand why anyone would choose to be a hermit. But some people do, and in this programme we'll be hearing some of the reasons why.
Throughout history and across all cultures, there have been people who choose to leave behind the life and people they know to live in isolation and silence.
People like Christopher Wright, an American man who lived in complete isolation in the forests of Maine for nearly 30 years. When hikers discovered his tent, all they found was an alarm clock. So my quiz question is this. Why did Christopher Wright, the hermit of the Maine woods, need an alarm clock? Was it A, to remind him when to hide his tent? B, to frighten away wild animals? Or C, to wake him up at the coldest part of the night so he didn't freeze to death?
Well, if he wanted to be alone so much, I guess he needed to be invisible. So I'll say A, to remind him to hide his tent.
OK, Rob, we'll find out the answer later. Christopher Wright may be an extreme example of someone seeking solitude, but there are many other motivations for becoming a hermit.
Some people are looking for peace and silence, and for others it's about being closer to God, focusing on what's inside and finding a sense of joy.
Meng Hu is a former librarian who now runs a website all about hermits. He says that in ancient times, many Chinese hermits seeking solitude were followers of the philosopher Confucius.
Here's Meng Hu talking about Confucius to BBC World Service programme The Why Factor.
His dictum was something like, when the emperor is good, serve. When the emperor is evil, recluse. And so over 1,000 years at least, there were a lot of recluses. There were a lot of educated men who simply couldn't tolerate any more evil. They simply dropped out and they would migrate to small villages, to farms.
Meng Hu mentions Confucius's dictum. A dictum is a short statement or saying which expresses some wise advice or a general truth about life.
Confucius's dictum advised that when the emperor was evil, people should become recluses. People like hermits who live alone and avoid contact with others.
In the interview, Meng Hu uses recluse as a verb, to recluse, but this is very uncommon. A more modern way of saying this is to drop out, to reject the normal ways society works and live outside the system.
A bit like the hippies in the 1960s, you mean?
Right, although most hippies weren't looking for isolation, they did have something in common with hermits, the desire to challenge society's rules and conventions.
Someone who combines the hippie and the hermit is Catholic writer Sarah Maitland. Part of a long tradition of Christian hermits, Sarah spent 40 days and nights alone on the Isle of Skye, seeking God in the silence of the remote Scottish island.
For her, the magic of silence is something to be embraced and taught to children. Here she explains more to BBC World Service's The Why Factor.
Most people first encounter silence in bereavement, in relationship breakdown and in death. And that seems to me about the worst place to start. When people say, well, what should we do? I think never ever go to your room on your own as a punishment. You use it as a reward. Darling, you've been so good all day. You've been so helpful. Why don't you go to your room for half an hour now and be on your own? Treat, reward.
Sarah says that most people experience silence after a bereavement, the death of a relative or close friend.
She also thinks parents should never tell their children, go to your room, as a punishment. Instead, being alone should be a treat, a reward or gift of something special and enjoyable. That way, children learn that being alone can actually be enjoyable.
I'm still wondering about that American Christopher Wright. I suppose living alone in the woods was a treat for him.
I suppose so, but why did he need an alarm clock?
Ah, yes, your quiz question, Neil. I thought maybe it was to remind him to hide his tent. Was I right?
Well, incredibly, Rob, the answer was C, to wake him up at the coldest part of the night so he didn't freeze to death.
That's someone who really wants to be left alone. A hermit, in other words, or a recluse, two ways of describing people who live alone and avoid others.
OK, let's recap the rest of the vocabulary, starting with dictum, a short saying often giving wise advice or expressing a general truth about life.
people who drop out, reject the normal rules of society and live outside the system.
Many people experience solitude after a bereavement, the death of a close friend or relative.
And finally, a treat is a reward or gift of something special and enjoyable.
That's all for now, but whether you're listening alone or with others, we hope you'll join us again soon here at 6 Minute English.
Don't forget, you'll find us on our website, or you can download our free app so you won't miss any of our programmes. And we're on all the main social media sites. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.